I used to work nights at a psychiatric institution that no longer exists. It was called St. Ormond's Hospital for the Incurably Troubled, which was a pretty depressing name for a place that had a gift shop. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a nurse. Officially, I was a maintenance worker. Unofficially, I was the person they called when something was leaking, screaming, or crawling through the ventilation system. Most nights were normal, or at least normal by St. Ormond's standards. Then they brought in a man named Walter. Walter had spent most of his life sweeping streets. He was somewhere in his 40s, thin, bald, and almost permanently confused. When the nurses asked him his name, he would sometimes answer correctly. Other times, he'd say things like, Tuesday. One nurse asked him if he knew what year it was. Walter thought for almost a full minute before saying, cold. His favorite thing in the world was a broom. Someone gave him a plastic toy broom from the children's wing. Walter carried it everywhere. He swept the floor. He swept the walls. Once, I found him sweeping the air. I asked him what he was doing. He looked at me very seriously. Dirty. I told him the air was clean. Walter stared at me. Then he slowly looked upward and said, not for long. That was the first time he scared me. The second time was when Dr. Vellum arrived. He was a tall, painfully thin man with a permanently sad expression. His eyes were always wet. Not even when someone brought him a birthday cake. He just whispered, another year closer. The strangest thing about him was his mustache. It was enormous, dark red, perfectly curled at both ends. One night, I found Dr. Vellum in his office without it. Beside him was a card, Red Bean Gatto's special order. I asked him if his mustache was made of cake. He looked down. A single tear rolled down his cheek every morning. After that, Dr. Vellum became obsessed with Walter. Walter was moved into a private room and began receiving experimental treatments. And every night, around 3 in the morning, I would hear Walter screaming, where are the handcuffs? One night, I followed them to a large metal door in the basement. Above it was a sign, Project H. The room beyond it looked like a stage. Chains, locked trunks, glass tanks filled with water, and a photo of Harry Houdini. Dr. Vellum walked toward him. Walter, he said, I am going to bring him back. He pointed to the photograph. Walter was strapped into a chair. The lights were turned on. Machines began humming. The room filled with the sound of chains. Walter screamed, then laughed, then shouted, I got out. Everyone froze. The lights went out. When they came back on, Walter was gone. The restraints were still buckled. But Walter wasn't there. 3 knocks came from inside a locked trunk. Walter climbed out. But it wasn't really Walter anymore. He examined the locks on his wrists. Within seconds, they were open. He smiled and bowed. Dr. Vellum applauded. The man looked at the toy broom. His eyes became vacant. He walked over, picked it up, and started sweeping. Walter looked at him. Dirty. Then the hospital lights exploded. The following night, I woke up in the basement. But the walls weren't concrete. They were pink, wet, and pulsing. It was a mansion made entirely from living brain tissue. And the place was populated by gargoyles in colorful suits. There were dwarves everywhere. Walter wandered through the halls with his broom, sweeping and mumbling. Behind a door was Dr. Vellum, still crying. His mustache was gone. Walter escaped, he whispered. Walter stood there, broom dragging. You made a mistake. He looked at the floor and began sweeping. Dirty, a locked trunk inside the wall started knocking. Walter pointed. The person inside isn't Houdini. It's me. I woke up in my apartment the next morning. Saint Ormond's closed. Dr. Vellum disappeared. Walter was never found. But sometimes I'll hear a broom scraping, and I find a small red stain that smells like red bean cake.